Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field educate, inform and inspire the community to live a more balanced and healthier lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is naturopath, respiratory specialist and published author Julia Rudakova, and she will be talking about effective solutions for sleep apnea. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you.
What is obstructive sleep apnea?
So obstructive sleep apnea is exactly what's in the name. There is an obstruction in the airways and the person stops breathing for some time during sleep. Those episodes can be quite long or can be short and frequent, and normally a good sleep study will tell you which stage of obstructive sleep apnea the person is at. And as always, as a breathing specialist, I go back to the fundamentals and look at why that dysfunctional pattern occurred. So with obstructive sleep apnea, as I mentioned before, there is an obstruction. So what the obstruction is, normally it's the tissues that are super relaxed during sleep. Oftentimes it happens when the person is sleeping on their back, and that soft tissue falls and blocks the airways partially, and it's harder to breathe. However, the body is very smart, and the body will always push you to breathe, and that's when the person wakes up. So it's that constant waking up throughout the night that leads to fatigue in the morning, poor memory, poor concentration during the day as a result. And we look at the whys of the obstruction. So oftentimes it is a bit of an extra weight that a person might carry. So just when there is a little bit of an extra weight, it's just the weight is more to press and the condition develops faster. There is also a chemical aspect of sleep apnea. Again, that dysfunctional breathing pattern, that vicious cycle of over-breathing, maybe even throughout the day, mouth breathing throughout the day, mouth breathing at night, that developed as a response. And it's not a pathology. I always say it's not a pathology, it's a response of the body to something. And we need to figure out what that something is. And that's a bit of a detective work that we do. But what I always point at is with obstructive sleep apnea, we deal with oftentimes CPAP machine. And what I say with a CPAP machine, it's a great intermediate step because there is no oxygen that the body receives, that the brain receives, and there is fatigue as a result in the morning. However, the CPAP machine pushes the oxygen, but we have two gases that participate in the breathing process. It's oxygen and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide is lost. And what the carbon dioxide does for us that we forget is that it delivers oxygen into the cells. We still need to maintain that oxygen delivery. It's the Boy effect. It's in every medical textbook. And what it says is that to detach the oxygen, so the oxygen travels in the red blood cells on the hemoglobin molecule, right? It travels in the blood and we need it in a cell, in a tissue, to have energy there, to get energy there. And carbon dioxide is the guy who takes it off the hemoglobin and delivers it. It's like in a taxi, and the carbon dioxide opens the door, please get out. Here is your destination. So we need it. And when we lose it a lot through mouth breathing, especially at night, we spend on average 8 hours. 8 hours a day we spend sleeping. And it's a lot of carbon dioxide lost through that. So we need to look at breathing retraining.
So what are effective solutions for sleep apnea?
So for sleep apnea, I do recommend to break that vicious cycle of overbreathing again during the night, during the day, and start looking at how we can reverse and how we can re-establish nasal breathing. Nasal breathing is the key here in obstructive sleep apnea, just because of that mechanism of oxygen delivery. And as a result, better oxygenation of the tissues and cells, and better focus during the day. Oxygen is energy. Oxygen is our energy currency. So we have energy from food, but we also get energy from breathing. So we can waste our energy through breath, or we can get more oxygen and get more energy.
What is your advice for people with obstructive sleep apnea?
Well, firstly, do not wait to get diagnosed. If you're tired in the morning, let's look at how you breathe during the day. And if there is any feedback, if you have a partner in the room, about your snoring, so that would be number one. But, for the viewers today, I would just say, let's do this little test and see how gently and slowly you can breathe. So set up a timer for 5 minutes and see if you can maintain regular, slow meaning it's an average 6 breaths per minute, right? It's a very functional breathing rate. It means you breathe into the count of 4, you breathe out to the count of 6, and you do it gently. And for sleep apnea, for obstructive sleep apnea, the gentleness in the breathing process is the most important aspect. And I'll explain why this is so. So imagine that the airway is like a paper straw. So when you order a milkshake at a cafe and you have a sip, nice big sip through a thick paper straw, and if you take it really, really hard, then the paper straw collapses. The sides of the paper straw will come together just because of that force. And if you sip gently, it's going to be intact. So that's kind of an analogy of our airways, right? So gentle breathing is the key here for sleep apnea sufferers. So you can start doing that at home, see where it leads you, and always seek an individualized plan from a professional naturopath.
Thank you so much, Julia. If you'd like to learn more about effective solutions for sleep apnea and Julia, you can visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Stick around because after the break, we'll be back with another guest and another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, Denise Mokadsi will explain what happens if you are struggling with menopause and how your genes guide you back to balance. Welcome back. Our second guest is health coach Denise Mokadsi. We'll be discussing the topic of if you're suffering with menopause, how your genes can help guide you back to balance. Welcome, Denise.
Hi, how are you going?
Why do women experience such different symptoms when it comes to hormonal changes during menopause?
Everyone's different, and hormonal fluctuation during menopause can be such a roller coaster for so many different women. I think understanding why symptoms are so different from one woman to another can be really clearly understood using the lens of epigenetics. And so epigenetics is a term that maybe some people have heard of. The viewers might have heard of the term but don't really understand it. And I find it really helpful to help women understand what they're going through and perhaps why they're going through certain symptoms. And so epigenetics, the way I like to explain it is you can think of a recipe, for example, and you've got all the different ingredients that go into that recipe, but how you put that recipe together, or how you add the ingredients, or how much if it's a pinch of salt and maybe the pinch is a big pinch or a little pinch, that will all affect the final taste of that recipe. And so we're a little bit like that. That's a little bit like our genes. Our genes are all the ingredients. We can't really change our genetic information, but how we put it together is like our lifestyle. And the whole picture of that is basically epigenetics. So it's our lifestyle, all the things that we're doing in our life that influence our genes or the expression of our genes. There's a couple of reasons why women will experience going through menopause very different from one another. One, our genes are different, so how we're going to experience hormonal changes will be different just because of the genes that we've got and how our body responds to those hormonal changes. And also our lifestyles are quite different from one another. So both of those things, as part of what the epigenetics is going to be a big factor in how women experience menopause or the perimenopausal transition. So when we can look at both elements, we can help women really understand what's going on. We can look at their genes. We can see how they might be detoxing or not detoxing estrogen, for example, and estrogen will change quite a lot through the perimenopausal period. And what are their lifestyle habits? What are they doing that might be worsening some of the symptoms that are associated with menopause?
How can women understanding their genetics influence things like weight loss, hot flashes, anxiety, that sort of thing?
We can look at certain genes and we can tell women, or anybody really, how they will metabolize fats, what kind of rate of metabolism they have, and what other factors might be missing, or like enzymes or vitamins or cofactors that cause certain reactions to happen in the body that help. So for example, there's a gene that helps you detox estrogen. If someone doesn't have that gene, or there's a variation on that gene, how they detox estrogen will be very different to someone who has the gene. That's some ways that we can use it. The other ways that we can use it doesn't even have to be the genetic sequence or those ingredients in the recipe. If they're carrying a lot of weight, for example, we might look at what foods are they eating. Is that not suited to their genetics? And is that just adding another stress on their hormonal changes through menopause? They get another stress to that. So we will just do an assessment and see all the lifestyle things that they're doing, what things could they improve on to help improve their symptoms.
Denise, in terms of tips for our viewers, what are some key lifestyle changes women can make to support better hormonal health during the periods of premenopause and menopause?
So again, we can get right down to individual strategies for people depending on what their genes are and their lifestyle, but probably generally for most women going through menopause, because it is such a hormonal roller coaster, a lot of it is under the influence of how we're metabolizing or sensitive to insulin. So a big key thing for perimenopausal or menopausal women to think about is their carbohydrate or sugar consumption. And by that, I don't mean carbohydrates from fruits and vegetables, like whole food carbohydrates are still quite good, but it's more the highly processed carbohydrates and the sugars that are influencing how much insulin is released. And when that is more of a load during menopause, when hormones are already fluctuating quite a lot, it adds another thing for that body to try to balance and to work out. Menopause is a very good time to see what's going on under the surface. Sometimes when you've got a few little things during menopause, those problems become much bigger. So sugar and insulin is a big one for menopausal women, but also alcohol is a really big one too, because again, of the detoxing of the hormones during menopause, that's a big load for the liver. And when we add alcohol into the system, the liver also has to try to manage the alcohol and detox the alcohol. So it's just another load. And it just means that the liver's not working to manage the hormone detoxification processes, and we feel the results of those toxins building up in the body more. And another important thing is about muscle mass. As we get older, muscles shrink. We're not growing muscle as much, and they get smaller. We lose muscle mass over years, and that's everybody. But for menopausal women especially, we want to make sure that we're maintaining muscle mass to protect our bones, like to have some good solid weight on the bones to strengthen the bones. And also muscle is very metabolically active tissue, and a lot of women during menopause struggle with their metabolism and gaining weight. So the more muscle we have, the higher our metabolism is, and that can help manage, these common frustrations of weight gain during menopause. But I think, if someone's really struggling with all of these things, they've got a lot of symptoms and they're a bit at a loss of where to go, it's always great to reach out for some professional advice and seek assistance to really help you get on top of a lot of the health things that happen.
Thanks, Denise. That information is so important, I think, to many of our viewers. If you'd like to know more about Denise and how genes can have such an important influence on menopausal symptoms, please go to Denise's webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, mindset coach Sharee Shefket will be talking about how to know if you have self-limiting belief. Welcome back. Our last guest today is mindset coach Sharee Shefket, and we will be discussing how to know if you have self-limiting beliefs. Welcome, Sharee.
Thank you for having me.
So, what are self-limiting beliefs?
So self-limiting beliefs are basically beliefs that are recurring, that's quite negative about yourself. That's what's called self-limiting. So if you feel like you're, say, an average student because you're a C grade student and have a great report card, that might be a self-limiting belief that you're just an average student. And what happens with the way your subconscious mind works, it will look for evidence. Every time you do something average C, you're just an average C student. And so that will reinforce that self-limiting belief. And every time you do an activity, you do it with that level of, I'm just an average person. Whereas someone who doesn't have a self-limiting belief, and they're maybe an A+ student, will look for more evidence that they are an A+ student. So when they do a task, they do it at a different level. So self-limiting beliefs are very important because it could really change your life if you've got them. And we all have. We have probably thousands of self-limiting beliefs unless you work on them. And it all depends on the programming that you've received as in your childhood, because that environment that you grew up in will play a big part of how many self-limiting beliefs you have.
How do you know if you have self-limiting beliefs?
So some self-limiting beliefs are quite conscious because it's like, okay, well, that voice in your head will say, see, you don't deserve it. You're unworthy. You're not worthy of beautiful things, and that, so it's a bit more conscious. But we also have several self-limiting beliefs that are still unconscious. The best one I think is really important is the fact of, do you love yourself? So, for example, a self-limiting belief is more of a negative belief about yourself, whereas just a belief about yourself. So you think, I'm capable, I'm productive. That's just a belief about yourself that's got a negative connotation. So what we're looking for is more the negative self-limiting beliefs about how you see yourself and how you present, and that will how you present yourself to the rest of the world. For example, I could test to see if you've got a self-limiting belief. Are you okay with that? Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So I do a thing called Psyche, and it's involves self-muscle testing. So I want you to say your full name, but as you say your name, I want you to swallow your saliva. So my name is, and then swallow.
My name is Ali Burney.
And did you swallow okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now I want you to do the same thing, but this time I want you to say, my name is Frank, and swallow.
My name is Frank.
And how was that for you?
That was really hard to swallow.
Great. The reason why you're unable to swallow is that subconscious controls your whole body. And so when something is not congruent, like the subconscious is basically saying the computer says no, you're lying. It's not like a bit of a lie detector test, but not actual, yeah? So what happens, it weakens your muscles, and that's why it's difficult to swallow. They actually did an experiment on this where they got two groups of people, one with the limiting belief of that they're unlucky and the one's lucky. They put money like in this box thing, like $20 note. The people who were lucky found the money straight away. It was like instant. But the people who had a limiting belief that they were unlucky, even though it was right in front of them, they still did not see the money. That's how powerful a self-limiting belief is. So you can do self-muscle testing through the swallow test. So your audience at home could do this easily. So they have to do a base test, like your name first and then a fake name, and they can test themselves.
So what are some tips to change your self-limiting beliefs?
So once you do the self-muscle testing and you can work out what your self-limiting beliefs are, you do one at a time. I don't recommend doing a few, just one at a time, because it's a process and it does take some time because the subconscious works on repetition. So just say you want to change the belief that you are lucky, not unlucky, you're lucky, yes? What I would recommend is, if you want to do it at home, is start to say you're lucky all the time. So put it on your phone, calendar, so it's repeating. Now your conscious mind is looking at it all the time, and they'll start to go into your subconscious. The other technique I recommend, are you left hand or right hand dominant? Right. Then you brush your teeth with your left hand, and what that will do, it will open up your whole state, your whole brain state, and that way you're brushing your teeth, you say, I am lucky, I am lucky. If we want to change any habits or beliefs, it takes about 66 days, which is about that 10-week mark. So that's why it needs consistency. You don't want to change 2 or 3 limiting beliefs. It's just too difficult. You do it. That's why it's a time-consuming thing, but it's possible. I also recommend someone who does Psyche, like what I do, which takes about 15 minutes to do. Yeah, but you still have to do the repetition, but it's a lot more efficient way to change that limiting belief. So it's something that someone can do at home. Like I said, self-muscle testing, see where the limiting beliefs are, and then start to rewire the mindset in terms of the new belief system. Now, what happens, and this is really important, you have a pathway. So you have a pathway right now that says, I'm unlucky. So let's examine that a bit more. You know, when you go to the beach, there's no pathway, is there? But you can see some footprints. Your mind will go straight to follow the same footprints. That's like a pathway. That's how I look at it. What I'm asking you to do now is we're creating a new pathway, but it's a bit more rugged. It's not as easy because it's not as established. So for you to go onto the new pathway, it's going to take a lot of effort. So, and it's, like I said, a process. And what's going to happen though, if you keep using the new pathway, the old pathway will start to fade away, and that's what we want. It will never go away completely, but will fade away. And the new pathway will start to get a little bit more defined and so forth. That's what we want. So the new belief that I'm lucky will start to get stronger and stronger. But where it goes wrong sometimes with people is that, just say you lose a competition, you don't want to reactivate that new pathway. Okay, I didn't win that competition. Doesn't mean I'm not lucky. I need you to still use the new pathway, because you can start to, again, revert back to the old pathway. That's where it's really important. Like, so it is a difficult process, so help from a therapist is really important. You'll get faster results, and you'll get that coach to really make sure that you stay motivated and having that support that you might need to change your limiting beliefs.
Thank you so much. That was so insightful. If you'd like to know more about Sharee and changing your self-limiting beliefs, you can visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That's it from us today. We'll see you next week.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.